Hello there. I'm David A. Specht, and I want to be your coach. If there's anything that I have learned in my 30 plus years of leadership and coaching, I have learned that mindset is everything. Join me and my guests as we explore the positives and negatives of that thing between our ears. This is Keep This in Mind. All right, welcome to Keep This in Mind, brought to you by davidaspecht.com. And of course, I am David A. Specht. And today's show, oh my gosh, it's going to be so much fun. When Sarit Attwood reached out to me through a mutual friend, or actually, I guess the mutual friend reached out to both of us, and she signed up wanting to be on the podcast, I was like, okay, you kind of get weirded out, right? You're thinking, okay, who's this person? I don't know who they are. And all of a sudden, she just came in with such energy through that I could feel through text. Like, this is a happy person. This is a person who wants to bring positive energy into the world. And then when I said, well, what are we going to talk about? And she's like, mindsets for $1 million body. I'm like, you are in my wheelhouse, lady. So, Sarit, I want to welcome you to the show. I could go through all the background of who you are, read a bio, but I think the best way for people to get to know you is to hear your voice and, more importantly, hear your story. So, Sarit, welcome to the show.
So good to be here.
So
it's so good that the initial impression that I gave you is high energy through text.
Well, watching what you and Aaron do on YouTube, I think high energy and fun is probably the staple of your lifestyle.
Yes, it is. 1000%. That's the only way there's longevity into anything.
Well, if you're not enjoying it, I mean, it's like drudgery, right?
Only a matter of time until you don't do it.
So one of the things that really struck me about your story, and if people were to look at this video today, and I know this is an audio podcast, they were like, "Oh man, she is super fit. She is like she's like the gym rat looking person." But that's not your origin story. Let's talk a little bit about your origin story in Israel. Yes, folks, you can't tell because she has no accent whatsoever, but she's from Israel, and about what it was like growing up there and some of the challenges you face, both from a body image standpoint, but also a mindset standpoint.
Yeah. By the way, great research. So for me, the reason why I do what I do is because actually both my partner and I, is because our mess became our message. And what I help people with is the one thing that I feel for a bigger portion of my life took away my freedom. And here's what I want you to know. The reason why I came to this country is because obviously I'm in the pursuit of my freedom. And one thing that I found out through my trials and tribulations and quote unquote having figured it out is that if you do not have discipline, you do not have freedom. So what I help people to do, and it doesn't matter where you're at physically, it doesn't matter where you're at mentally, it doesn't matter what age you are, is I help people to gain freedom by achieving discipline in every area of their life in a way that is simple and sustainable, because it's all about longevity. If we don't have longevity, it's only a matter of time until we stop doing it. So David, you and I were chatting a little bit about the diet industry before this, and like David said, if you were to look at me right now, you were to think that I probably work out, 2 times a day, and you would probably think that I never struggled with my body. And that's actually not true. I became who I am today through the same steps that I take people through. So what you see today is literally like 12 years in the making. So for me, growing up in Israel, I was an overweight child, obviously growing up in a Jewish household, like, food is everything, just like Latin and Italian families. And I believe most cultures at this point. But it's like, if you're sad, you eat. If you're happy, you eat. If it's Friday, you eat even more, right? So you eat. And I'm also very small framed. I'm 5'1". I just have a big personality. And, when you grow up being an overweight child, you see life from a different set of lens, because kids don't really have filter, which I guess is one great thing about them now. The unfortunate thing is that kids on the other end who get the, I guess, beating of it, get abused to some degree. So growing up, I used to always be bullied and be made fun of. And not only did it hurt, but I also knew it's like, David, can you relate to this? Like, have you ever felt like you were born to do something special?
Oh, absolutely. I think
Yeah,
that's a driving force for, I believe that we were created on purpose for a purpose, and not everybody gets that.
right. So I knew that from a very young age. And, you know, how I've been treated by other people and how I felt about myself was just misaligned. So one day when I was 12 years old, because every time it was like, some kid's birthday party and it was spin the bottle and no one ever wanted to kiss me because I was the fat little ugly duckling. I was like, man, I got to do something about it. Like, I no longer do I want to be known as that fat, ugly duckling who also has a speech impediment. In case you didn't know. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna do something about it. So, not knowing what I didn't know back in the day, I was born in the 80s. Like, I figured, I'm like, let me put myself on a diet. And like you, David, we chatted a little bit about this. I have a very obsessive personality. So for me, it started with calorie counting to completely depleting myself off of food to at the lowest, I took myself to 104 pounds. And one day we were at a cruise with my parents and my mom. I'll never forget this. Like, I still have this vivid image. Like, she put a piece of meat in front of me, in front of everyone in the dining room. And it sounded like she spoke to me so loud. And she said, Sarit, if you don't eat this piece of meat right now, the whole family's going off the ship. And I don't care how humiliated you are, you gotta eat this piece of meat. So I'm like, oh shit, like the pressure, right? I don't want to break the family. I don't want them to not be on vacation. So I ate that piece of meat. And once what seemed like one bite actually took me off the entire rails because I didn't know how to control myself because
Mm.
I wasn't taught how to be disciplined. So I share this with you because the next 10 years, it was just a series of trials and tribulations of, this diet, that diet, that diet, all up until one day, 3 weeks after I graduated from college, I came to the United States to play tennis in college. So that's what got me here. And I get a call from my mom. My dad got a massive heart attack.
Oh no.
And he worked in Africa at the time. And obviously, their medical care is extremely compromised. So it's a miracle that he's here with us. And I know that this needed to happen for a bigger reason. So I bought a one-way plane ticket because I wasn't sure if I was ever going to come back. I knew my family needed me. I was terrified for myself, for my future, the future of my family, because my dad was the breadwinner, right?
Absolutely.
But, my dad went from being this like super in shape, like parachute military guy to not knowing how to take care of himself, having a sedentary job, right? To, by the time he was 40, he had a little gut and a little bit of high blood pressure, kind of like the normal thing that most
Yeah, yeah,
40-year-olds
yeah. Yeah. After
face.
40, the pills start flying into your pill box.
Right, to now higher blood pressure, to high cholesterol, high triglycerides, and he thought himself to be invincible, and I saw him as that too, because that's how I knew him as. And then all of a sudden, one day, um, even though the writings were on the wall and we were all expecting it, if we're just being honest with ourselves, he just fell down. So I'm not sure if you ever like saw a person and you could tell that the life was just taken out of them. And yeah,
Yeah, yeah. I saw it with my dad. He had pulmonary fibrosis. He was in his 60s, and when it decided to take him, he was a completely different person than he was 2 weeks before he went into the hospital. So yeah, I've witnessed that sucking of somebody's life, almost like their life force, their will to live, their everything that made them seemed to change in a moment.
yes, exactly. So as soon as I got off the airport in Israel, like I just went straight to the hospital to meet my dad. And our actually flight took there faster because they needed to resuscitate him on the flight from Africa to Israel a couple of times. So anyways, I remember seeing his face, and it was like an outer body feeling. And it led me to have a spiritual awakening moment, which changed the trajectory of the rest of my life. And basically, when I saw him and how he looked at the age of 52, how he felt, how each and every single one of my family members, myself, my brother, and my mom, like looked at him, saw him, made me ask myself the question, is this what you want for yourself?
Mm-hmm.
And my answer was no. Because you see, I was just like my dad. I looked up to my dad. I wanted to be like my dad. So this aha moment like made me get honest with myself for the very first time in my life, because up until then I was just chasing external things, wanting the scale to be a certain amount so that I could fit in, I can be loved, feel more confident, whatever story I told myself. But now it was a matter of I was on a quest to treat my body in a way that will help me to feel like $1 million so that I will no longer try to seek validation from anyone else at any given point in time, and so that I will feel proud with myself. So I guess by knowing what I didn't want, I now got clear on what I really wanted. And I asked myself the question of how would a healthy person live? Like, would they do this? Would they do that? Like, when I made my decision to commit to myself, I used to eat like I was a sugar addict, food addict, like chocolate was like my thing, and I would eat it in extreme amounts to a point where I would give myself a sugar coma because I'd feel so guilty and I wouldn't want to feel the guilt, that I would overconsume it to the point where I would just coma myself to sleep and then wake up the next day extremely guilty. I would drink at least like 6 cans of Coke Zero every single day. And ever since that point, I was like, in order for things to change, I've got to change. So I made a commitment. And ever since then, I told myself, I'm like, God, you show me the way, I'll follow. And if my body shifts, I'm going to spend the rest of my life helping people who are either in my shoes or my dad's shoes to build a life that they're proud of. Because what I learned is how we take care of ourselves and our bodies touches every part of our lives. It touches our marriage. It touches, like how we show up for our kids. It touches how we show up as a leader at work. And it touches our legacy. And something that I see so many people who are driven, who are success oriented, like my dad, tell themselves this phrase, which you probably heard a lot of times too: I don't have time. You cannot afford to say you don't have time. So what I help people to do is to fit in a way where you don't like do a 360 shift for your schedule. So I help people to get disciplined by fitting in what they want to achieve with their current preferences, their current lifestyle, and their current goals, so that the shift is incremental and is longevity driven. And ultimately, like 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years later, like it's not even the same person, just like, just like our clients. One of the things we say is that it's not about the weight that you lose, but who you become in the process. So, like you say, you get a seat in your mind in order for you to lead it. And I think that that's something that is really missing in this industry, because there's a strong focus on mechanics, eat this, eat this, eat that. But when you're stressed out, when you've had an emotional day, like that's the last thing. Oh, doctor so and so said I should eat this. No, when you're feeling emotional, like you don't think about that. You're like, what is the thing that can comfort me?
Right.
You know what I mean? So how can we train the mind to lead us through these moments? No one talks about that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I want to touch on something, because I think your journey and paralleling, like you said, you're taking your journey and the lessons learned and the disciplines built, and then trying and transferring it to your clients, giving them the tools they need to do a similar journey. Everybody's journey is different. We get that. My question for you would be, as someone who was obsessive in certain areas of their life,
Mhm.
And I've dealt with people with addictive personalities. They're just like, they go to the gym and then they ruin their muscles in the first 2 weeks and then they don't go back for the next 2 years. It had to be a process too to work through that. How did you address your own obsessive nature as you were stepping into this new disciplined life? How did that part of the journey go?
This is really good. And what I'm about to share with you is simply my own belief system. Okay. I believe that when you're obsessive or you have an obsessive personality, you're actually gifted. And if the obsession is sabotaging, then it's probably because you just haven't figured out how to channel it in a way that is sufficient for the greater good. So I'll tell you, did my obsession go away? Not really. I'm just channeling it in a different direction. And because it is not destructive, it is not like as impulsive, right? It is intentional driven versus like disruptive, like, oh my God, this thing happened. Let me just go ahead and pour an entire box of Lucky Charms into my mouth because I don't know how to deal with it. So
Right.
for us, we're on a mission to help millions of people to achieve freedom and empowerment through the same movement, nutrition, and lifestyle habits that have transformed ours. So every single day I wake up with a purpose. So my obsession was channeled into a purpose to help others to accomplish a disciplined way of life so that they can achieve freedom and empowerment and pass it on.
Oh wow. So I think you're coining a new phrase for that I may have to use from here out, and that's
What is
intentional
it?
obsession. Intentional obsession.
Hmm. I don't know if I've even said it before. It just came from my heart.
As like so and really that I love that because and the fact that you said the obsession is a gift because I think when I look at what I use a phrase and I didn't coin it. A lot of people that I know use it and they say success leaves clues.
Mhm.
And one of the clues that I have seen, especially with the ultra successful, and success you can define any way you want, but the guys with the books on the shelves that everybody's buying, okay, they are obsessive in a very focused way, right? It doesn't matter if you're in sales and you're Grant Cardone. It doesn't matter if you're in performance and you're Tim Grover. It doesn't. Whoever it is seems to be very focused but yet obsessive at the same time.
Yes.
And you're really right. It is a gift. It's the ability to obsess on the right things because let's face it, in this world we have a lot of people who have very short commitment and attention spans. And if they don't see results day one, and they don't see results week one. One of the things you talked about was year 5, year 10. Most of them can't get to week 5, much less year 5, right?
So
So
true.
So,
Yeah.
so tell me about that aspect of how you help your clients. How do you help them see the long-term big picture as you're helping them incrementally develop discipline and habits that serve them at year 5 and at year 10?
Yeah, that's a really great question. And I will say there's a couple of parts to the answer. And the first thing, actually, I got to write this. I just got to write 3 points down to make sure that I'm on track. Okay. So the first thing is reassurance. And the reason why I say reassurance is because I believe that we've all been tricked by the system. There is a system out there and it's controlled by the big food, big pharma, big soda, and they control like basically everything. And it's intertwined together. Like, if you look at a Cheerio cereal, it says, oh, supports heart health, where the reality is that if you look at how many grams of added sugar it has, it's like it would give you diabetes, right? So it's not true. So I share this with people at first is because it's important to know, when you have that moment, like, gosh, like I got to do some about myself. I know what it feels like. You feel low. You know what I mean? So while it is important that we're responsible, and I'm going to talk about that in just a second, it's also really important to understand that you are the way that you are today because of a couple of reasons. Reason number one is because you just didn't know any better, because you've either been uneducated or you've been undereducated, and the information that was given to you was not necessarily the right information. Like even doctors who, graduate from med school take 4 hours of nutritional education, and it is all sponsored by the Heart Health Association. And if you see the foundation of the nutrition, it's all processed carbs. You know what I mean? Like it's not the correct information. So we've all been tricked. That's number one. Thing number two is honesty and responsibility. So then the next thing is you are where you are today because of every decision, every choice, every action that you took or didn't take up until now. And that could be unfortunate. Now, the good news is that because you've created that, you can also shift all of that.
Mm.
So we want to be honest with people so that they know that they're not the victims. This is why we talked a little bit about this, unless really necessary. I do not believe that pills or surgical implications are the solution, because it takes away the power from the person.
Mm-hmm.
And it's only a matter of time until the person comes back to living inside that body. And then the next thing is education about what is real in a simplified format. So that's what we do with our people, because our goal is to provide them with the tools and the skills so that they're free. Like if you have to be dependent on me for the rest of your life, you're caged. You're not free. I did not do my job right. So my job is to speak the truth about society, to speak the truth, to empower people. Maybe it triggers a couple of people. And if that's the case, then I'm probably not the right coach for them, because I'm not here to sugarcoat anything. I'm here to make you great. I'm not here to make you feel like amazing about yourself if you feel like you're not at the highest point.
Right.
And then I'm here to just provide principles that are delivered in a simplified format. If you want, I can share kind of like how we teach what we teach in a really quick way too.
Yeah, go ahead. I think it's important because I think a lot of people will not take the first step because it's overcomplicated in their heads.
Yes.
And so kind of take us through, if you're like, David, you're coming on to be a client of mine, this is what it's going to look like.
Yeah. So I want you to think about it like you can call it a pizza pie or a wedding ring, or a ball, a circle, and you divide that circle into 4 parts. And the 4 parts are movement, nutrition, regeneration or recovery, and mindset or mental toughness. So we've got these 4 pieces, and they're all under the one circle, one ring, one pizza pie of discipline. So what we do is we take people based on where they're at from a behavioral standpoint and based on where they want to be, and we classify them based on levels, and then we give them an action step from each and every single one of these categories, and they got to execute for at least 60 days before they progress. Why? Our intention is to build consistency. And one of the slogans that we have is progress, not perfection. So we're not going for perfect. We're not going for 100%, but we're going for like a high standard 80%, because when you got to give yourself room for error when you're in what I call learning mode, because life is full of ebb and flows. For some reason, people think that when it comes to starting a business, building a business, or, like losing weight or transforming our bodies, that it's this linear curve, right? It's like if you drop four pounds in your first month, then that means that by month 2, it's 8 pounds. And if you're at 5 pounds, then something's wrong with you or the system. But the reality is that life is not linear. Life is full of ebb and flow. So when you lead with a high standard and a level of consistency through the ebb and flows of life, you're consistently going up and up and up, and you're also developing the skills and the character that lives around that body. So when a certain level is achieved, a certain level of consistency, Then we add a little bit more complexity to make it challenging, make it fun, and also to continually increase standards, because there's always the next level.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like how I ate 5 years ago is not how I eat now. How I worked out 5 years ago or how much weight I lifted 5 years ago is not how much I do now. And 10 years ago, it looked completely different. So, we go through constantly varied progressions in everything that we do, whether it's in the training program, like no workout that you'll see is ever the same, because our intention is to shock the body, to make it fun. And also at the same time, we want to make sure that it's safe. And the same thing goes with nutrition. We don't specifically prescribe any diet unless for medical reasons a person needs to. What we go by is nutritional principles, because I believe that diets lock in people and actually take away the freedom element, right? So it's like when I build people, I want to make sure that they're able to follow through, whether it's a weekday or weekend, whether it's a holiday weekend or a regular weekend, whether they're on vacation or whether at home, because when you are able to feel like your life is not full of stop and goes, it actually releases you, and it allows you to get into a creative space, and life becomes a flow. It's not just full of effort and it's hard, because it's hard to sustain that. This stop and go lifestyle. It's like no one likes to go on the highway where it's bumper to bumper, stop and go. Why? Because it makes you nauseous. But for some reason, when it comes to our bodies, most people are living the stop and go lifestyle because their mind has been trained that way, because they haven't known anything different.
Right, right. I love the four quadrants, and one of the things that I take away from that, and you know my story, I a little bit too on my weight loss journey. One of the things that I learned was if it's not simple, I won't do it.
Right.
If it's not, if I can't understand it, then I won't do it. Oh, and I don't I don't have enough willpower to use willpower beyond a short burst of time.
Yeah.
So I would say that your approach to nutrition, based upon circumstances, based upon the person, creating something that they can embrace in that 5-year window, that 10-year window, and it's going to look, like you said, it's going to look different than day one way out here.
Yep.
But at the same time, what I see, and I want to get your insight on this too. Back to the idea of mindset. One of the things I've learned, and I want your opinion on this.
Mm-hmm.
So many people come into this type of relationship, and we all need a coach. You're a better performer no matter what it is if you have a coach in your life.
Agreed.
But if they come into it telling you what they're not going to do, I see that as a red flag. Do you see a lot of people coming in, even like approaching you going, hey, I got to do something. And then you start talking to them. And the next thing you know, they're telling you all the things they're not going to do. Don't even ask me to eat broccoli because I'm not going to eat broccoli, that kind of thing.
Yeah. So so the way that I would coach someone who is like, let's say first meeting or first time I see them, they're like, just so you know, I'm not going to do this. The first thing that I would ask is why. Because whenever we choose to do or abstain from something, it's because there's a belief system around it. So I will want to know why. And one of the things that I see, and I tell a lot of our clients, I tell people all the time, like, if you were born in America, like, you're very fortunate. And I also feel sorry for you because you haven't been taught how to eat vegetables in a way that actually makes it delicious. So that's why I would just ask them, hey, just curious, like, why do you say that? Oh, because eating broccoli sucks. So then I would ask them, if I could show you a way where eating broccoli wouldn't suck, would you be open-minded? So that's one thing. And the other thing is, this is why we don't particularly like follow meal plans, because I don't want to restrict people, because let's say if for a medical reason or just a preference reason, a person's like, listen, I don't like it. Okay, cool. But if someone is, let's say, not willing to be coachable, I wouldn't per se say that eating broccoli isn't being coachable, because there's got to be a belief system around it. But if it's, just so you know, I'm not willing to get uncomfortable, then of course I would come from a place of curiosity and see where are they coming from, and then I would educate on why it's actually important to embrace discomfort. And then I would lead with honesty and say, hey, listen, if the only way that you want to get better is through, comfort, because you want to dream your way to a great shape body, and you're not willing to put the blood, the sweat, and the tears, then I'm probably just not the right coach for you. And that's totally okay. And if I know someone else who's a better fit, like, I'll send them their way, right? That's why I also love collaboration, because I know that I'm not for everyone.
Gotcha.
So that's how I would coach it. How would you?
Yeah. So I'm always about the why. Why are you doing this? Well, I want to look good in a bathing suit, or I don't like this belly hanging over. I said, that's not good enough. That's an external thing. Why are you doing this?
Mm-hmm.
And because I know in my own situation, my why had to become greater than my want.
Yes. So good.
And so that was for me, because the simplicity of the system that I was on, okay, tools are done. I'm good. All I gotta do is embrace the tools. But the want to wasn't always there. And it was the why, which in my case was a grandson that hadn't even been born yet. He wasn't even a sparkle in my kid's eyes. But I knew that I was going to have a grandchild someday. And so
Oh,
focusing on that and knowing how my own father was with my kids, I wanted to be that type of grandfather. And so that was the thing that got me to eat the broccoli. That was the thing that got me to set the alarm and to drink, more water than a human being should be forced to drink, all of the things, right? And so for me, that is key. Is Simon Sinek says start with why, but I believe that sometimes you have to dig deep enough to find what your own personal why is, or you'll never change, because
yeah.
the want is too strong. The why has to be stronger than the want.
Yeah. So
So,
true. Vision gives purpose.
yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. So I want you to talk about something a little bit more fun, and as we wrap up today, because we do there is a lot of hard and heart work in this process.
Sure.
But for everybody who's ever gone through it, legitimately gone through it, not the ones we were talking about, there's this inflection point that happens where they get it. And all of a sudden the light comes on, and there's a glow about them because it's working, and their life is being transformed. And as a coach, that's like the best part of what we do,
Yes.
right? Is when we see
Yes.
the inflection point. Talk about what it's like for you when you see somebody not only embracing the discipline and building the habits, but literally starting to walk in that freedom that you talk about.
Yeah. So for me, it's the most empowering thing. It's like I am not a mom yet, but I can only imagine the feeling as a parent when, like you see your child go from crawling to standing up to taking their first step, the first time. It's like this, oh my God moment. It's like, yes, it's finally happening. It's as coaches, I believe that that's what we breathe for. That's why we do what we do. It actually it's what fuels me to want to be better, and what it inspires me, because I'll tell you, like, no one who devotes their life to improving others wakes up one day and is like, "Ah, you know what? I'm just going to wake up and be a coach," because it's not a glorious road. Like, sure, maybe like once in a while, like a Tony Robbins or a Grant Cardone, like over time, the glory comes out of it. But before that, like it is a tough road. And especially when you're going against what is mainstream, the quick, the easy, the fast, that at this point, it's like, just take this pill and like shed the weight. Meanwhile, 78% of Americans are either overweight or morbidly obese. I'm like, no, like it does not feel right in my heart. And if I had to choose, hey, do this for money and go for something that you don't believe in, or, like lead with integrity and money or not, you will be taken care of along the way. Like, I will not be able to sleep at night knowing if I'm doing something that is not in alignment with my core values. So it's, that moment is everything. As a matter of fact, yesterday, I'll read this to you. I shared it with one of the groups that I coach, and we were on a coaching call, and one of them stepped up in a really, really big way that I've never seen before. And when you have those like visible growth moments, like when you walk with people in the trenches, it's like the most empowering thing. So here's what she said. Hold on, let me open it up for you. Oh, here we go. So I said, can I just tell you guys that I love you and I'm grateful to be on this journey with you. You inspire me and you make me want to be better every day. Like, our clients as coaches are actually our greatest form of accountability.
Absolutely. I'm 100% there. I mean, I think you step it up when you know people are looking up to you. And, to me, that when you've been through something and you've come out changed for the better,
Yeah.
you almost feel obligated to share that with others so that they can.
Yeah.
And, like you said earlier on, we feel called to this purpose, whatever it is. You could have, overcome an abusive situation, and you can help people come through a recovery of that. I mean, it's not always about a number on a scale, or a number of plates on a bench press. It is literally when you have emerged from something, there is
Yeah.
this tug on your heart to share that process with others. So as we close, I want to allow you, or encourage you, if people are resonating with your story, if they say, man, I really want to develop these habits, I really want to lean into what Sarit's doing, how is it that they should go about that? How can I get in touch with you? What are some of the things that they should do? Maybe some ways to get ready, because we do have to get ready before we make that call or send that email or that DM. So kind of, if somebody's like, man, I want to do what she does, I want to follow in her footsteps, what are some of the things that somebody needs to do to achieve that?
Yeah, so we recently wrote an ebook. It's called The $1 Million Body System. And the reason why we created it is because we wanted to give people a simple, bite-sized formula of how they can start leading their life with discipline. Because if you're anything like how I used to be, and I'm over here just like stuffing my face with like processed foods and like chocolate, and literally taking chocolate frosting because I already finished a tub of Nutella, and you're talking to me about discipline, it feels hard, it feels daunting, and it feels overwhelming. It's like, okay, well, I feel like I'm here and this is here, and where do I even begin? So I share this because number one, I want everyone to know that discipline is not something that you're born with, it's something that you create. And just like, a bicep curl, like you do not just go for like 10 pull-ups in a row if you haven't even like, done a bicep curl with 5 pounds. So I share this because the intention of the $1 Million Body System is to enlighten people mentally with the first three perspective shift that will allow them to start discipline in their life. And also, we take them through 3 simple exercises so that they can see how it is for themselves as well. And yeah, if anyone wants to download the ebook, it's milliondolarbot.com/ebook, milliondolarbot.com/ebook. And I mean, honestly, I'm a people's people. I do what I do because I really want to help people. So while I can just say, go ahead and DM us on all social media platforms, we're at Erin and Sarit, super easy to find us. I would also give you my number so you can text me, because what fuels me is the stories. It's like, hey, like, I heard your story. I'm inspired. Like, I don't know what to do. Like, let me guide you. So if you want, I'm happy to share my number too.
Well, how about we do this? We'll put all that in the show notes so people can have it right then and there, because I would hate for somebody to run off the road trying to copy a phone number while they're driving. So,
True.
but we'll put everything in the show notes, guys. And man, this has been a good conversation. Sarit, I want to thank you for being on the show today. I want to thank you for your heart behind what you do.
Thanks.
And at the end of the day, folks, we all have to come into the place where our mind is right so that our body can follow. And that's how we started the show today. And I end every show with this phrase, and I want to end it this time. And it's weird. Every time I finish a show, I say, and it really applies here, but it truly applies here. And that is, it's not knowledge that's power, it's applied knowledge that's power.
Yes.
And you have given us some knowledge to apply today, Sarit, and I really applaud you for that. And I want to thank you so much for being on the show today.
Oh, it's my honor and pleasure. Thank you for doing what you do, David. And congrats to you for all the success you've created as well.
Thank you. Thank you.
That is going to do it for this episode of Keep This in Mind. For more, visit davidaspecht.com. Like, follow, and subscribe. Thank you for listening, and remember, applied knowledge is power. God bless.